Hello, I'm Harp, and today I'm welcoming you back to the Rule Book Room. This room has been created for both of us, you and me, to understand legal principles. To be your most strongest and most confident, we need to know the most basic thing. So let us delve into another episode of this podcast. I'll quickly remind you in previous two podcasts, we had the conversation about bigamy under the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. Surajmani Stella Kuja versus Durga Charan Hansda helped us understand the question of law who is a Hindu for the purposes of Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, and S. Nagalingam versus Sivagami helped us understand how the solemnization of a Hindu marriage occurs. If you have not already heard those podcasts, go visit them right now. I'll leave the link in the description box. Today, we are going to further understand bigamy under Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. We are going to understand it through Bhaurao Shankar Lokhande versus State of Maharashtra. This is a 1965 case, an old judgment but very relevant to understand that it is essential for punishing a person if he marries for the second time under the Hindu Marriage Act that his second marriage should have been validly solemnized. Now, appellant Bhaurao in this case had married for the second time, and a complaint was filed against him by his wife under Section 494 of IPC. Do remember, even if it's a case where personal law is governing the facts of the case, the wife in this scenario can resort to a criminal complaint. Now, Section 494 IPC can be invoked if the conditions provided are satisfied. Remember, first condition was that the first marriage should have occurred. Second condition was that the first marriage should have been subsisting, meaning it should be continuing. And the third condition is that both marriages are validly solemnized. If you look at Bhaurao Shankar's case that we are discussing currently, it is pointed out that the appellant had contracted the second marriage and followed Gandharva form of marriage to solemnize it. Section 7 of Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 makes it clear that any ceremony can be followed by either party to solemnize the marriage. Now, the most peculiar thing about Gandharva marriage is that, as ancient as it was based on mutual love and affection. You can also understand it in the context of a marriage where witnesses are not required. So, if a man and a woman wants to marry, they can marry in absence of any rituals and in absence of witnesses who could have seen how the marriage was solemnized, what ceremonies were being performed. In a Gandharva marriage, if the man and woman respect each other, if they have mutual consent residing between them, they can undergo a marriage which does not require strict ceremonies to be performed. It is a marriage deeply rooted in love and affection between man and woman. Remember the play Abhigyan Shakuntalam, which is also known as Shakuntala, written by Kalidas? The protagonist Shakuntala was the daughter of Vishwamitra and Menika, and she had fallen in love with King Dushyanta, and both had performed the Gandharva form of marriage to signify their love. If you have not already read it, I suggest you to go ahead and read this beautiful love story. Once in a while, we can read ancient love stories. Now, coming back to Bhaura Shankar's case, we see Supreme Court observes Mullah's Hindu law. I'm reading passage 6 verbatim for you. The Gandharva marriage is the voluntary union of a youth and a damsel which springs from desire and sensual inclination. It has at times been erroneously described as a euphemism for concubinage. This view is based on a total misconception of the leading texts of the Smritis. It may be noted that the essential marriage ceremonies, as much as a requisite part of this form of marriage as of any other, unless it is shown that some modification of these ceremonies have been introduced by custom in any particular community or caste. Well, on reading this passage, what comes across is that a man and a woman, when they decide to get married, it is because of strong love connection, purely out of their own feelings. But sometimes people wrongly think that it is concubinage and the man and a woman are just living together without properly getting married. Smritis clearly say that it is a real form of marriage. Gandharva marriage was a valid love marriage in ancient India, but it still had to follow the proper wedding rituals, unless a specific community had its own special way of doing things. The Supreme Court observed that marriage took place by following certain ceremonies. These ceremonies included spreading of the carpet on which wooden sheets were kept, on which the bride and the bridegroom sat themselves. Some form of puja was also performed by bringing a tamba pitcher. This tamba pitcher had betel leaves and coconut placed in it. Parties had also garlanded each other and they struck each other's foreheads. In this case, witnesses say that in order to perform a Gandharva marriage, there is no requirement of going to a temple. There is also no necessity of a Brahmin priest to enchant mantras. If that is so, then the main question before the Supreme Court to answer is that does the second marriage have to be a proper, complete wedding for all the usual ceremonies for it to be counted as a bigamy? To answer that, it is essential to satisfy the conditions provided under Section 494 of IPC. Specifically, Bhau Rao's case is dealing with ambiguity regarding the third condition. The third condition was becoming very difficult to prove in this case. Supreme Court observed second marriage must be valid one in the eyes of law so that they can understand that there is an offense of bigamy committed by the accused. But if nothing of the sorts has been done, no ceremony has been adopted to solemnize the marriage, how do we understand the offense of bigamy? Answer is simply no. If third condition has not been satisfied, then the offense of bigamy is not made out. Further, court also noticed that there was a witness who was stating that for 5 to 7 years, a Brahmin, a barber, and a Thakur was not required to perform a Gandharva form of marriage. But earlier, a Brahmin used to chant mantras, and it was also necessary that bride and bridegroom's foreheads should be struck either by maternal uncle or by any other person. But in this case, we saw that bride and bridegroom struck their own heads. Based on this, Supreme Court held that 5 to 7 years is not a very long duration for a custom to take the force of law. Remember Section 3 Clause A of Hindu Marriage Act of 1955? It states that a custom can take the force of law provided it's ancient, it's continuous, it's uniform. It's not against public policy and also it's not unreasonable. But when you notice witness stating that 5 to 7 years a Brahmin, a barber, and a Thakur is not required to perform Gandharva marriage, that duration of 5 to 7 years is not long enough to accommodate a custom in the category of it being followed since antiquity. Therefore, Supreme Court had no other option. In dearth of evidence that second marriage was not solemnized according to any valid ceremony, it had to acquit the accused Bhau Rao. Well, thank you again everyone for joining in the rule book room. I hope to see you again with another judgment. Till then, bye.